Ladies and gentlemen, we are back. And we have a surprise guest, direct from the Premier Division, on loan for tonight. We have my good friend, GL Phoenix. Phoenix, how are you this evening, mate?
I'm doing wonderful, thanks, Winters. It's great to be here. It's always fun to get to cast some of these games, and we've got a really good one set up coming to us next.
Indeed you are. And we are going to be playing our next game on the old Cursed Hollow. So the original HOTS map. What can we expect from these two tonight?
Yeah, well, it's one of the maps that has been around pretty much since the start, so it's very well mapped out, and it's one of those maps, because it's the bigger style, it's got the 3 lanes, it's very much playing towards the global style, which we could very well see from some of these drafts. So very interested to see how these teams are going to be playing around it. And the teams we do have are Unreal Aussies Raynor here versus Dragon Doritos. So some very interesting teams. I believe both teams are 1-1 over the course of the day. So very interested to see how they match up against each other.
Phoenix, looking forward to seeing the Unreal Aussies guys. It's how it's little bit of an unknown with the Dragon Doritos, I feel. We've got some very common names in there. Most notably our friend Cone Wizard. Goomba Girl, Vanessa, Endless, Nears, Bion, all making up the roster there. Sorry, Bion. And for the UA team, we've got Chuck, Bongo, Andromeda, Rhinosaurus, and Naked. All of these guys know their way around.
Yeah, these are names that they pop up here and there throughout the scene, and they haven't really made it into one of the teams that have been contesting some of the higher spots in the scene, but we've been seeing them pop up a little bit more consistently, and as they're getting these teams together, we're seeing them start to really progress as a team, and it's really nice to see. And with both teams having one win already, we already seeing some of that progress from these teams.
Indeed. Phoenix, what I'm looking forward to is seeing these boys and girls strutting their stuff on the big stage with us, and hopefully putting on a really good show. So moving away from the double twin lane maps that we've played tonight so far, moving into what is arguably the biggest map next to Warhead Junction, really looking forward to seeing some specialist play, if I'm honest.
Yeah, there are some specialists that do tend to come in when it comes to Cursed Hollow, most notably just the Abathar. His global pressure and presence cannot be understated, but it does require a very coordinated team to be able to play around the somewhat weaker early game and play around some of those power troughs, which can kind of bait some teams into some really bad situations. So I'm very interested to see if either of these teams will go towards that. I'm just interested Phoenix, to see where they go. Yeah,
let's find out as we are ready to kick off our draft. Let's go and see how these two teams want to ban and pick their way into Cursed Hollow and victory. Ladies and gentlemen, we are kicking it off.
Alrighty, so we have been seeing a lot more priority, especially with the bans towards things like the Blaze. The Maev does pop in from here and there. She's quite strong, I'll just say that much. I mean, sure, she did get a little bit of a nerf with the recent balance patch, but she still does have a lot of power. But another one of the heroes that, although you do have that Maev coming in to try and counter the hypermobility, Genji is still just really good as a hero, so we're not going to be seeing that one.
Yes, as displayed by Hill in that last game on Team EA, banned out first. His mobility, slipperiness, and damage is just sometimes a little bit too much to deal with, Phoenix, as we slip straight into a Maev ban.
Yeah, so a lot of that mobility and just the anti-mobility just taken away. They're just two very strong heroes right now, so not too surprising to see those on the ban list. But the first pick of the Dahaka is, again, not too unsurprising, especially for a map like Cursed Hollow, where it is a much larger map. It does put a lot more emphasis on the global presence heroes, things like the Dahaka, the Falstad, things that allow you to drag the opponents around the map and play the macro style more.
Couldn't agree more. As we do see Dahaka picked up first for our blue team, giving that global pressure, and the
Mhm.
ability for him to sit there and rake in that experience whilst the rest of the team does their rotations and potentially forces a non-global hero to stay down there with him to make sure that they're not missing out on that XP as well. So we see Malfurion and Hanzo picked up on the red side.
Yeah, they just very strong heroes, to be honest. The Hanzo does have a lot of poke and can really shred down a lot of, or most targets, really. And the Malfurion is just a really strong hero in the meta right now, especially paired with things like Tracer. Uh, he can really bring out a lot of healing while not necessarily needing to babysit someone. Just throw the regrowth onto a hero and they just allow him to just hit the Moonfires, and whoever's got those regrowths is going to be benefiting from that a lot. So a very strong hero in the meta right now. So not too unsurprising to see the Malfurion bring have a lot of priority on him. So nice start to the draft for both sides because they've got some really interesting combinations coming in as we're coming into the second round of the bans.
You're absolutely right, mate. We have Unreal Aussies picking up Li Ming and ETC. So thoroughly expecting some solid damage there from that Li Ming, and hopefully an incredible 5-man mosh pit from the ETC. I got a slight feeling though that we might see some interrupts coming from the Dragon Doritos. Let's find out as we go into the second round of bans. We see Stukov banned Phoenix.
Yeah, that's one of the healers that is really good, especially on this map, especially when you start to take the objective into account. There's a lot of narrow corridors, and those lurking arms can do so much work and can be really obnoxious to deal with. So just not wanting to even entertain the fact that Unreal Aussies could go towards that healer, just get rid of it. Just force them onto something that is a little bit more manageable when it comes into those areas of the map. And it looks like the Unreal Aussies want to be banning away the Greymane, which is another strong DPS hero right now. And you was mentioning about getting some interrupts to deal with that ETC. Something that's still on the board is that Anubarak, which is a very powerful hero. Yes, it would run into the Li Ming, but there's a lot of crowd control still available for both teams. So very interested to see how it goes. It was the Greymane that ended up getting banned.
Well, as you point out, the Anubarak is still open, Phoenix, and Anubarak is a very good direct counter for Li Ming, being able to instantly initiate on her with 2 stuns, and what is arguably the highest spell damage resistance build of any tank in the game at the moment, which is why we're starting to see him climb back into that meta. Interesting with that Greymane ban. Tells me that our team on Unreal Aussies don't really want to be dealing with too much melee pressure.
Yeah, and also just how much he does a little bit of everything. Yes, he did get those changes. So some of the cocktail, the strength of the cocktail build was kind of pulled back a little bit, and a lot of players are tending to go more towards either the Quicksilver Bullets or the Wizened Duelist, and just allowing him to be very aggressive, very in your face, still doing a lot of damage, but it's not nearly as safe, but still can do a lot of work. The Muradin is going to be picked up as well as the Kel'Thar, so interesting pickup, but the Muradin does make a lot of sense, as we were mentioning, needing some of that crowd control to deal with a potential mosh pit, and you got it right there with that Muradin.
Well, we see Muradin coming in with his big old stun hammer, and Kalthas with laps is also quite able to make sure that ETC's mosh doesn't go quite according to plan. Lots of damage on the team of Dragon Doritos. So I wonder if we'll see a convection build, Phoenix. I'm interested. Is that a thing in this high level play?
Oh, I hope not, because convection is, I just feel it's just a massive bait. As a talent, it's a bait. You get some extra damage, but you just put so much more of a target on.
At what expense?
You had just a massive target on your head, and if you go for the arcane barrier, you also get the mana. You have more mana to use, so you can be able to get your spells out more. You're safer, and you don't have as much of a target on your head. So I want to see the arcane barrier, but
we want to see the safe play from this Kalthas tonight.
You want the consistent play, more or less.
So we see an interesting pickup here from our Raynor with Lunara and Lily. So do you think we're looking for a long game and we may see something like an ETC stage dive just to try and stretch that out and get that experience up as quickly as possible?
That is always an option when it comes to the ETC. If you feel as though you're not going to get much value out of the mosh, but you can go for that stage dive and get another global. They already had the Dahaga, but sometimes you can just stack up on the global heroes and the global mechanics, and you can just control the map so well. So that is an option, and the Lunara is a very strong, or especially late game, as you were mentioning, wanting to go more for the later game. That the poison scaling is very, very strong, and the 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 Lily pick is a bit of an interesting one, especially when you have things like the Kalthas and the Hanzo, who are going to be doing a lot of
It's a
spell-based
very
damage.
interesting pick, Phoenix.
Yeah.
There's no hard melee for those guys to require the blinds from Lily. And with the inability to target your heals, you open yourself up to a lot of burst potential. And Hanzo and Kael'thas have that in spades. So
Absolutely.
I'm wondering what our UA friends are thinking. Hopefully, kind of sneaky plan up their back pocket, not backside.
One thing I will say though is that it ends up being a reasonable pick with the Tracer coming in at the very last for Beyond. Sure, it makes a lot of it makes a lot of sense to have the Tracer and the Malfurion. I mentioned that combination higher up in the draft is just very good. It allows the Tracer to play very aggressive, but the Lily all of a sudden has an actual purpose, blinding that Tracer, making sure a lot of her aggressive plays are kind of just negated in a way.
Again, I couldn't agree more, Phoenix. You're hitting the nail on the head there. The Malfurion Tracer build, which we saw in the first game, actually was, it's an effective combination. You get that regrowth or the rejuve rather on target, and then spam that Moonfire. It doesn't matter where they are on the map. They can have a long-lasting rejuve on them, and you're still healing them up. So hopefully they can put it to good use as we get underway with our third game for the evening team. UA right here on the blue side with Chuck 35-35-35 playing the Li Ming. We have Rhinoceros on the ETC, Fongo rocking on the Lunara, Claymore with the Dahaka, and Andromeda on our Lily.
And on the red side, we have the Dragon Doritos. We have Goomba Girl on the Kalthas, Endless is on Hanzo, Niz is on the Muradin, Vanessa is on the Malfurion, and Beyond is going to be on that Tracer.
And Phoenix, we get underway with a 5v5 in. Is this quick match or is this open division?
Well, we can say it's a little bit of both at times. I mean, everyone loves a little bit of a slap and tickle at the level 1. It's not really getting too much. It's just trying to get some kind of early. It's about sending a message early on, but
kill. You take away a global from the top potentially. You set an enemy behind. It's not going to put you a level in front, but it's certainly going to give you a little bit of an edge.
It sends a message more than anything, really.
Exactly, yeah. We see the lanes breaking away with a Tracer going down to the Dahaka with a Malfurion to follow. So we will see that Malfurion Tracer pairing continuing through the game, no doubt, as they apply a little bit of damage to Claymore. We've got a little bit more of a melee fracas happening with a 3-on-2 in mid. A little bit of damage coming out from Kalthas. Muradin holding that fort there. And then checking out the mid lane, we've got Hanzo, top lane rather. We've got Hanzo versus Li Ming, which again is an interesting solo lane matchup. Phoenix?
Yeah, a lot of these lane assignments are quite peculiar. We don't see a lot of these matchups all that often. As you're mentioning that top lane, the Hanzo up against the Li Ming, it's a really peculiar matchup, but Endless is getting the most of it as he's just blasting down that Li Ming.
The range on that Storm Bow and those scatter arrows is absolutely on point for Endless. No doubt winning that top lane convincingly, having to go already. And in the mid lane, ET goes down to that living bomb. Kalthas putting out the deeps early on in the match.
Yeah, and also with that Tracer coming in as well to just drop on that pulse bomb was doing a decent amount of work, just forcing him back and is getting a lot of pressure in this mid lane, and it's giving the Dragon Doritos a chance to take some of these camps and also just keep on applying the pressure in the lanes. It's not really too much going on just yet. It is just posturing back and forward, but it's just kind of testing the waters until the objectives start coming up.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more. They are just testing the waters. Oh, as we get a double on mid onto the ETC with a Muradin hammer, or gravity lapse rather. We see Tracer picking up that Bruiser camp nice and early down the bot lane there, helping out the Malfurion while he's holding on against the Dahaka. And we'll get our first tribute spawning in the bottom half of the map.
Yeah, and meanwhile, with the siege camp being taken on the red side, it's also being taken on the blue side, and I feel as though this one is going to be getting a little bit more value, especially with how this tribute has spawned. Because it's on the bottom side, it's going to force a lot of the members down from Raynor here.
Ooh,
and they will be able to deal with it.
Push. Is this Lunara going down? Lunara is Gonski. So is Lily.
Oh,
What a bait bush. Well done there, Dragon Doritos.
oh Chuck
Li
is gonna
Ming
be-
with no
oh.
health. Very gutsy there.
That was ambitious to say the least. At very little health, knowing that the rest of the team had just been demolished by that very sneaky play. Nice gank on the rotation. Just really, I don't think the communication probably broke down a little bit there. Not expecting the rest of the team to be just there. So the first tribute is going to go over to the side of the Dragon Doritos, and they're just still putting down a lot of pressure. And they didn't really lose all that much on the top side of the map.
Well, they still hold an almost full level lead, which is interesting against the global with the Dahaka. We do see them taking down some of that keep wall. Pretty much the whole keep wall in the bot lane has gone down now, just from the help from those siege giants.
Yeah, it's really hard to deal with unless you have a full team effort, and it's just allowing the rest of the Dragon Doritos to just keep on pushing in, and that's really all you really need for in this early stage of the game. You don't need to start pushing all that heavily for those forts. You're okay to just take down those towers, get those pockets of experience, and we can already see right now the experience lead is very much in favor of Dragon Doritos as this next tribute is spawning. And
oh, we see the Dahaka almost going down to that Tracer right there. And there we see the Pulse Bomb taking out Dahaka. Unfortunately used his Burrow Charge already. Rhino on the ETC also falls to the massive damage put out there by Dragon Doritos. Are we going to see Hanzo pick up the Lily? I don't think so. With her passive, she gets that move speed and gets out of trouble.
Yeah, made a good effort for it, but just some of those scatter arrows were just a little bit misplaced and ended up going in all sorts of directions. Be a little bit of a fickle beast. That
Phoenix, geometry is not that simple sometimes.
sometimes it isn't, and it can be a little bit of a pain to deal with, but it's still a very strong fight and a very strong position for the side of Dragon Doritos, because they did pick up those 2 extra kills. They've got another tribute, and the next one is going to be the curse. So they're in a very good position, and they can very well just race to level 10 and then just keep on pushing the pressure onto Raynor here.
Well, 10 is definitely on the horizons now for Dragon Doritos.
Earn my favor.
Through the level 9 as this third tribute spawns. They've picked up the Night Camp, which is going to start threatening that mid lane and apply a fair amount of pressure for Unreal Aussies to have to deal with. So no Merc Camps being picked up for UA just here. We've got Tracer and Muradin picking on the poor ETC down the bottom. Li Ming coming in for some support. And we have another bait bush. Phoenix, we're going to have a repeat.
They want a bit of a repeat, but they're just not really.
Oh,
the rotations just
don't do
weren't
it.
inefficient. It looks like they aren't going to just go all in on the ETC.
Wow, and they drop the ETC in short order.
Ooh, the Lunara almost going down to that living bomb, but does manage to get out of there just in time. But they've been forced back so much that this curse is going to be activated for the side of Dragon Doritos, and this is just going from strength to strength for them, really.
Dragon Doritos are looking super strong here at the moment, Phoenix, as they pick up that third curse. We got Hanzo splitting off immediately up to that top lane. He wants to get some keep value, fort value, as the rest of the 4-man is applying a lot of pressure to this bot lane fort. Li Ming looks to be caught out, gets the hammer stun. Is she going? Yep, she's down. We get the Twilight Dream out. Malfurion's in the middle of it. ETC, Pulse Bomb, dead. Lily also goes down. That's a 3-for-nothing trade, Phoenix.
Yeah, it's not even really a trade if you just don't give anyone up. It's just taking kills for your team, and that's the heroic advantage onto the side of Dragon Doritos. They were able to just blast down those heroes on the side of the Unreal Aussies. It's a little bit too
we
far
missed a little
forward.
melee up the top there with Endless taking out the Dahaka. Claymore falling to a solo Hanzo.
Yeah, just a little bit over aggressive, trying to hold on to some of their structures when they just didn't really have the ability to do so, as the ETC does get taken down. And this
Taken down by the Pulse Bomb again on the Tracer. The damage that this Tracer is putting out is phenomenal. And unfortunately, our Unreal Aussies haven't even 10 yet. So they've got no way to answer with heroics of their own.
Yeah, they're stepping a little bit too far forward, not really respecting the level of disadvantage that they have. Yeah, you want to be able to hold on to some of your structures and force away your opponent, but they're not even close to being in a position to be able to do so just yet. They finally hit 10, so they do have their heroics, but you're going to imagine it's getting close to being a little bit too little too late, as they do manage to pick up the boss on the side of the Dragons Doritos, and they are going to just keep on picking on this ETC.
The ETC is once again caught out of position. Pulse Bomb is going to destroy him, especially with the Quantum Spike dealing an additional 10% full health damage. And on that ETC, that's a lot of health and a lot of damage, Phoenix.
Absolutely, and this is just going to allow them to keep on pushing in with this boss. This could very easily be a keep down. Could
This
almost
is a
be
win
the
condition
game.
here,
Yeah,
Phoenix.
this could
The
very well
boss
be a
is
win
doubling
condition.
that
They just need to try and hold on the side of Unreal Aussies. They just need to not give up any more kills.
Well, as we see the Dragon Doritos move, the boss is going to slam. He's onto the core. ETC goes down once more to some Kael'thas damage. Dahaka also falls to the Tracer. Is this it, Phoenix? Oh, we've got the Malfurion down. No more heals for Tracer. As Bjorn gets low on health, Li Ming spamming out that Disintegrate, trying to get some damage off. Boss is almost out of HP. Core is at 20%. Core is going to fall, team. This is game. 9 minutes on Cursed Hollow, going to the Dragon Doritos.
Yeah, there's a very dominant performance coming out of them, and a lot of it was on the back of Beyond on that Tracer, just really just harassing that front line, and they just didn't really have much of a response on the side of the Unreal Aussies. They tried to make plays when they just didn't have the resources behind them, and every time they were just a little bit short, and it just snowballed out of control for them, really.
Yeah, I feel the Unreal Aussies just didn't have any answers when it came to what Dragon Doritos were displaying and putting on offer tonight. It's an interesting short game on Cursed Hollow being such a large map, and I think UA guys were hoping for a little bit of a longer game to get that Lunara value.
Yeah, they did have a rather solid level 10 composition. It's just by the time they got there, it was a little bit too late. They had already been put into such a hole experience-wise and also just structurally that it was very hard for them to really make a play on that level 10 spike for them. It was just a little bit unfortunate that they weren't able to really get themselves into the game.
Yes, unfortunately for our Unreal Aussies, they do go down in a convincing defeat at the hands of the Dragon Doritos, who played very well, very aggressive from the outset, and put a lot of pressure and heat on from the start. What do you think we can take away from that game from Dragon Doritos' composition there, Phoenix? What do you think the future looks like for them in the Open Division?
Well, it was a very solid composition. The only real question mark, like in terms of composition, the Kael'thas, I'm probably thinking could be something a little bit more.
So typically we'd
more
probably see a
probably
Jaina or something like
this-
that in that instance, right?
To be honest, I'd probably switch it out for something more meta relevant in terms of the solo lane, because we saw at the very start we had some very weird solo or lane
Hanzo versus
acquisitions.
Leeming top
Yeah,
lane.
we had some weird lane positionings. We had the Leeming versus the Hanzo. It's not something you see every day. It's kind of a bit of an odd one. And then you also had the Tracer and the Malfurion going up against the Dahaka. I think a lot of those weird things just came about because of the way the composition got put together. But
Yeah, I feel like their draft phase may have been a little bit too reactive and perhaps not all that well planned, or some of their heroes got banned out early on and they weren't able to recover from that.
Possibly. Still, they were able to play it out incredibly convincingly. So there's always that that they can take away from it. That sure, some of the drafting I think could use a little bit of touching up here and there, but you got to appreciate how well they played that.
Absolutely. Getting the three curses in a row to absolutely destroy all that bot lane all the way through to the first keep on that first curse, and then to instantly take the boss, opening up that win condition and opening up the map further, allowing them to get the ganks on that ATC, poking his head out once or twice, a little bit overextended each time, perhaps thinking he was safe, but not realizing the full damage that Tracer and the Kael'thas were putting out.
It was a hell of a lot, and it was very hard for them to deal with, especially when they started to get levels behind. The numbers were just stacked against them, and every time you want to be making the plays, you want to be helping out your team, but when you're stepping forward like that, ETC, he can be rather squishy in most circumstances, and yeah, we saw that time and time again. He was this overextended, he got picked on constantly, and it was very hard for him to really look good in that game at all.
Well, that's the thing. Like, you may be able to play on a tank Phoenix with a high health pool and high regen, but after ETC's received a fair amount of nerfs over the last sort of 6-month period, armor reductions, losing the attack speed buff on his passive, converting that to armor, massive reductions in his health pool and regen. So, sometimes people are just playing ETC a little bit too aggressively and gets caught, especially when you've got that 10% extra damage on the quantum spike on Tracer's level 10.
Yeah, he just gets punished by it, but that is going to be it for the round 3 game. It was a bit of a quick one, so we're going to have to go to a bit of a break while we wait for the rest of the games to finish off in this round. But when we come back, it will be the last round of the night. This is the ANZ Open Division. Don't go too far away. We'll be right back.